Out of the 11 difficulties in EToH, terrifying is the second hardest one. And in this video, I'm going to be beating all 11 terrifying towers and talking about my experience with every single one of them. Starting with my first terrifying tower all the way back in September of 2024, the Tower of Impossible Movement. This grind started around a month after my return to the game. If you didn't know, I quit for over 2 years, then came back near the end of last year, with my first extreme tower back being ToAE. For some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to jump from TWK all the way to ToIM, which I definitely wouldn't recommend for any of you guys, and you'll see why in a bit. It's also worth mentioning that I used a ton of LHJs and other skips to significantly nerf the tower, which was probably the only reason I was able to make that jump. I don't have much footage from the original grind, but the way I remember it is that it started out with very slow progress because I really struggled with the first half. But once I became consistent at 1 through 5, I was able to pull off this crazy run even though I hadn't even been to the second half that many times. Also, my recording was broken, so you can only hear my friend and not me in these clips. Anyways, my PB was probably only floor 7 or 8 when I got this run, and I somehow managed to make it all the way to the final floor of the tower. My friend happened to be up there with me, also trying to complete his first terrifying, and this double win would have been absolutely insane. The only thing that stood between us and beating our first terrifying towers was this final stretch, or at least that was what I thought. When my friend got to the win pad, he was able to complete the tower successfully, but unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky.
Oh, no way. No.
And to this day, that is still one of the worst fails I have ever had in EToH. My first terrifying gone like that, and I felt so bad about it too because it completely ruined the double win. If you're wondering, my friend who skips too, but there were a few tiny sections in which he didn't skip and I did, such as this one on 9. I have no idea what exactly led to me getting win pad kicks since I did so many skips, but if it's not this, then it's a different minor one. I was really upset about this because it meant I had to rebeat the entire tower, and getting back there was quite a struggle. From that point on, I decided I was only going to use skips for recovery after I had fallen to avoid getting kicked again. But for some reason, I just couldn't get any good second half runs. Compared to my first completion where I got kicked, I failed the second half way more trying to rebeat it, which was honestly very demotivating. That was until I got on to do some more attempts the next day after the win pad kick. And for some reason, I recorded the entirety of my 5-hour long winning run, so I'm going to break it down for you guys real quick. I didn't get anywhere in the first half hour of playing, so I took a break and didn't come back until the timer was at over 120 minutes. 3 hours into the run, I had this really stupid fail at the end of floor 7, and then I proceeded to do literally the exact same thing 20 minutes later. 4 hours into the run, I had yet another really dumb fail, this time at the end of 6, and by this point I was getting really annoyed at the second half. But then, 291 minutes in, I started yet another random attempt from the first floor, not knowing that something absolutely insane was about to happen. I passed the first floor, the second, the third, the fourth, and even the fifth, giving me yet another second half attempt. I passed floors 6 and 7 flawlessly, but then I got ladder dropped on 8. This was really unlucky, but I got right back up there immediately and continued with the run, where this time I got past floors 8 and 9, bringing me to the final floor of the tower for the second time. I breezed through 10 inside, and you already know what part of the tower we're on now. My friend from the previous day was in chat to see my completion, and then finally, I had done it. My first terrifying tower completed, the Tower of Impossible Movement. I really wish my recording software was working so you guys could hear my reaction, but my friend called me right after I beat it, so you guys can at least hear that here.
GG. Oh my. No. Finally, bro.
I was super excited to finally have completed this tower after that tragic win pad kick, and I expected it to be the only terrifying I'd be able to complete for a while due to all the skips this tower had. But it wasn't long before I discovered yet another terrifying tower with 5 billion skips, and this time no checkpoints. The Tower of Frightening Nightmares. A little under a month after my ToIM completion, I was just messing around on a random Saturday while waiting to go hang out with one of my friends. I had just finished completing every insane tower the day before and I didn't know what to do next. So I started messing around on ToFN and I realized the first few floors were actually pretty easy. That fast progress motivated me to do a practice run of the tower. I was able to find a ton of skips that once again significantly nerfed it, none of which kicked. After only one all jump, I headed directly into runs of the tower. And while I didn't record much footage because I wasn't originally planning on making this video, I got to the last few floors really fast. Unfortunately, I still had some pretty bad fails near the end of the tower if I recall correctly, but even with those, this grind would still turn out to be extremely quick. I remember I failed very far into the tower right before going to hang out with my friend, and he told me that he wished me luck and thought I could beat it on that day, so I went home and tried to do exactly that. After a few more fails very far into the tower which I didn't record, I eventually got this run to 10 where I successfully pulled off this very difficult but also very good LHJ skip. From there I was able to get to this wedge section that I remember struggling with a lot, so much so that I failed it like 3 times. But this run was different, and I really took my time which allowed me to barely make it through. That brought me to the final stretch, and this time was a really easy one, so all I had to do was not choke under the pressure. After only a day of grinding, including practice, ToFN was complete, marking my second terrifying. I was in shock that I beat it so quickly despite knowing how much I nerfed it with the skips, and also that tower was just barely a new hardest, so it felt even better to get done. But from there I was starting to run out of options when it came to which towers I could cheese, so my next terrifying was going to be something I don't think anyone, not even myself at the time, could have seen coming: the Tower of Inception. After clearing some more extremes and a bunch of random early zone towers, I decided it was time for a new terrifying only a couple weeks after the ToFN win. I don't know why, but I thought it would be kind of funny to do ToI since it's known as one of the worst towers in the entire game, and you already know I completely cheesed it and escaped a ton of soft locks. I actually didn't find the tower to be all that bad though, but I did have a pretty good experience with it, mostly due to me cheesing it. If I remember correctly, the actual reason I decided to do this tower was just so I could fully clear rings 1 through 6, and it actually turned out to be not such a bad idea. This tower is split up into 2 halves, with the first one being really long and repetitive with not too much punishment except for the insta-kills on the floor, and the second half consists of mostly very difficult gameplay over soft locks. The first time I got to B-side, I failed these thin studs at the start of 7, but even just getting there gave me a lot of confidence that I could beat the tower soon. I decided to start recording to get some footage for a video, and the first attempt I had when I started filming was crazy. I'm not going to talk about this too much because I already made a video on it, but essentially, I made it all the way to B-side. Floor 6 was fully escapable, so after loop failing a bit, I was able to get my second 7 attempt, and this time I made it past those thin studs. The rest of the floor was still hard though, and failing it sends you back to 4 with an escape, and I was really gonna have to lock in since I under-practiced. And I'm pretty sure I did lock in based on the fact that I made it to 8, which starts off with a fully escapable first layer. The second layer of 8 is completely free, so the only part that I actually had to worry about was the very end. I made it past the tricky speed section first try though, and now the only unsafe part of the tower I had left was the first layer of 9. Unfortunately, that also happens to be the hardest part of the tower, so I really didn't expect to pass it without any fails. But somehow, someway, I did the thin studs, the hard wraps, the first X-Push momentum jump, the 10.5 stud left wrap, and now the only thing left was one final X-Push momentum jump.
Okay, last jump. Last jump. Yes!
And I had done it. A new hardest all the way from ToFN, since the rest of the tower was now safe. After a short break on 10 and a bit of loop failing, I was able to reach the win pad. And since I used mostly escapes and not many skips, I didn't even get kicked. This completion was extremely unexpected, and I was genuinely in shock that I completed the tower in only a few days max, and as a fluke from 7, with this being one of the only times I've fluked an SC in this game. TOI is also the hardest terrifying, so it was really nice to get it out of the way, but it made it so my next hardest was going to have to be a catastrophic tower. But before my first kata, I decided I wanted to clear all the extreme towers, and the only reason I'm mentioning that is because the next tower was actually extreme when I beat it, but later got moved up, and it just so happens to be the worst SC tower in the entire game, the Tower of Fractured Memories. I'm not going to talk about this one for too long because I already did that in my SC tower cleanup video, but I'll briefly go over my experience again for you guys who haven't seen it. This tower technically took months to beat because I kept quitting the game in the middle of the grind due to how bad it was. There was almost a 2-month long period where I didn't want to play at all because I knew this tower was what I had to grind, and progress was very slow until mid-January this year. After so many fails on floors 7 through 9, I finally made it to 10 just for this to happen.
I got stuck! What?
Kind of just jump. Make sure you jump at the end. At the end.
All that time spent on this tower just to fail the same stupid swinging platform twice on floor 10, eventually leading to me dying since it's a life system. And when I did manage to get back up there, my second attempt at 10 somehow went even worse.
What?
It didn't give me enough.
Wait, what? Same!
I don't know. Don't hold that.
It didn't work!
If you didn't see what happened there, the bouncer thing completely broke for both me and my friend, causing me to fail because nobody playtested this tower apparently. I'm aware that I skimmed the wall a little on one of the attempts, but I had nowhere near enough momentum to make it anyways due to the buggy bouncer. And like I said, the same glitch happened to my friend as well. It really sucks to have fails like that because there's not much I could have done there. So now I was just gonna have to grind out this horrible tower until I got another 10 attempt. The third time I failed 10 was a little more normal, but still very infuriating. And it was essentially impossible to gain any sort of consistency on this tower, so it took me forever to get to 10 each time. But this grind was gonna have to come to an end eventually, so I present to you my 4th attempt on the final floor of ToFM.
Just do whatever you want.
Yes, okay. This jump though, oh my gosh. There. Okay.
Did you want me to go first? Or are you good? Good luck.
Yes. Okay, new PB, final stretch. Okay.
Oh, you're going. Good luck.
Yeah, I got the height. Wait, did I do it? Please. Did I win? Yes! Yes!
You guys have no idea how glad I was that ToFM was finally over, but my excitement would fade quickly when I realized I didn't get the badge. Due to a bug, it literally just didn't give me a badge for the tower when I beat it, and the badge is one of the most crucial indicators of completing a tower. I asked the devs for it later on, but they literally just gave me a warning, so I was gonna have to rebeat this entire tower later, which you'll see at the end of this video. I also went back to rebeat all the towers I cheesed, which is another thing I'll put at the end, but for now, let's move on to the Tower of Alien Radiance. It seems kind of random for me to do ToAR at this point, but it's actually my 299th tower, and I did it in preparation for my first kata. I wanted a little bit more of a skill boost since I completely cheesed my first 3 terrifyings, as you guys all know. This tower was also covered in that same SC tower cleanup video, but I'll give you guys a quick breakdown here as well. I don't have any footage from before 8, but since the second half is very lenient, I ended up loop failing and catching myself over and over again for like an hour when I did get to that floor. But eventually I was at 10, and this floor is netted with a catch. You can save yourself and return to the middle, but there's an insta-kill spinner on the floor, so you have to take your time and play cautious in order to avoid it. And of course I did the exact opposite of that. Just watch this fail real quick.
Okay, never mind. I guess that doesn't work. I don't really know.
You had no idea what I was doing there, but we're not going to talk about it too much, and we'll skip to my second 10 attempt on the next day. This time I was going to make sure not to let that happen again, so I took my time and made sure to only go when the spinner had passed. Even though I fell a couple times, I was still able to make it up and finally complete ToAR after 2 days of grinding.
Please. Last one. Yes, I did it. I did it. Oh my pain. Yes, let's go! I basically had to beat that twice. Oh my gosh, let's go.
I had wanted to do that tower for a while at that point, and it was actually really good, so I'd highly recommend it to anyone around the skill level for it. But the next tower was going to be a lot more mixed, and I still don't know how I feel about it to this day, with that being the Tower of Micromanagement. By the time I started my ToMM grind, it had been months since the ToAR completion, since I got really caught up with beating ToGF as my first kata and making videos. I actually started playing this tower a little right before vacation, but I failed 7 the night before my flight, so I had to wait until I got back to finish it off. My recording software was not functioning properly once again the night where most of my good runs took place, but thankfully my friend Toaster, who was helping me beat the tower, recorded it from his perspective. Before I show you guys some really bad fails, I'd like to showcase the absolutely absurd skips that I used on this tower. I actually was playing this tower legit and got to 8 outside normally before doing any skips, but this fail right here caused me to get really bored of the tower, so I just completely cheesed it instead. I should probably also mention that most of these kick, so only use them as recovery, except for the last 2. Those are safe. Starting with the first recovery skip, you can LHA up here to enter the secret room on 2, which will teleport you really far ahead in the tower. For the second recovery skip, there's yet another LHA right here, followed by a dance skip that skips the end of 4 and start of 5. The third recovery skip is a pretty obvious one. Yet another LHA that skips 6 outside, which is very helpful because you can fall past the net if you try and do 6 outside legit. Now for the 2 non-recovery skips that don't kick as of the time I'm making this. You can literally skip all of 8 outside, which is one of the hardest and scariest parts of the tower, just by hopping on this thing and simply walking towards the truss. You don't even have to jump, it'll just launch you up. That's by far the best one and somehow it doesn't even kick. And also throwing this one at the end that skips part of the time section on 10, making it so the timer doesn't matter. By using those skips, I was able to get to the final shots very easily. The last part of this tower is actually pretty hard and also over an insta-kill. The entire run came down to this, and I failed instantly. I messed up very badly due to being nervous and just climbed down a little too far on the sledge, sending me right into the insta-kill. That was quite the fail, and it wouldn't be the last time I failed the final stretch either. When I did manage to get back up there, this happened.
Jump really hard.
Let's jump.
No!
The worst part about that fail is that I landed the jump itself, but I just kept holding down the spacebar, which is a bad habit I have, and it led to me bouncing right off the ledge. My friend Toaster had to go after that, so I was on my own for the rest of the night, and I would have to try and beat the tower by myself. I didn't have my mic on for this third attempt on the final stretch, but I passed both the parts I had failed before, as well as some other hard jumps bringing me to this platform, where I just LHJ'd up to the wind pad and beat the tower after a long day of grinding. I was pretty satisfied with this completion, but very tired as well. Though it definitely was still nice to get done, as it was the last tower I needed to complete zones 1 through 6. The next area I wanted to complete was zone 7, and the final tower I needed there was the Tower of Uncanny Agony. Similar to ToAR, I actually ended up really liking ToUA, although I did have a lot of very bad fails. I recorded a lot more footage for this one to show you guys the full experience, so let's start with my first 7 attempts so I can showcase yet another crazy skip. It takes place on 7 outside. Just make sure you get this button before doing it, or else you might get wind pad kicked. After you get the button, just come up here and do a short wall hop to this invisible platform and walk around the frame. Yes, this skip is intentional. I don't know why it's here, but you might as well take advantage of it. Make sure you jump off back to the gameplay around here, and then all you have to do is get this button, which makes the entire thing BP as well. I definitely didn't fail immediately after.
I went way too low on that.
Okay, maybe I did, but I got back up, so we're good. Except for the fact that I forgot to lower my FPS for this lodge, which would have made it significantly easier, so I failed it. Very unfortunate. We can just skip to my first 8 attempt though, because 8 through 10 are by far the hardest floors of this tower. I'd probably even say that they're catastrophic difficulty. If you're wondering why the raw gameplay in this tower is so hard for terrifying, it's just due to how much button progress it has. My first 8 attempt didn't go too bad though, because I got past this spinner into this truss where I flicked off just a little bit early. The second time I got to 8, I made sure not to do that again, but I jumped too early on the conveyor, leading to yet another fail. It didn't send me back too far though, so I got back up almost instantly, just for this to happen.
But we're coming up on my PB.
The next time I got to the floor, I would finally get a new PB, and I even made it past a few more hard jumps, but my run ended to another fading truss jump, and I somehow managed to ragdoll all the way down to 2. There's so many 8 attempts that I'm just gonna start speedrunning them at this point. So here's all of them before I got to 9. I failed this ladder flick, choked this head hitter twice in a row, messed up this one stud gap fit in twice in a row with the first one ragdolling me for some reason, and then finally got a new PB. This run was very promising as I got past the wall hop and 360 wrap, and before I knew it, I was at 9.
Yes, I'm on 9. I'm on 9. I'm on 9.
The next 2 floors weren't going to be much easier than 8 though. So as expected, I had my first 9 fail to this spinner jump. And if you guys thought I was done failing the same jump twice, you couldn't be any more wrong, because I failed this ladder jump, and then that same spinner jump again, and then that same ladder jump again. Things were finally starting to look up when I got to 9 outside and first tried it, giving me button progress, meaning I wouldn't have to do the section again. I was definitely starting to get nervous though, and I failed a really easy truss flick, sending me back to 7. But it wouldn't take too long to get back up there. When I did, I basically got to 10. All I had to do was climb up this truss, but then...
Yes! I didn't mean to jump!
That had to be one of the dumbest ways I could have possibly failed, but I somehow did 9 again in the same run, bringing me to the final floor of the tower. I was really hoping to fluke this, and it actually got off to a very good start with me passing some of the hardest jumps. But there was another very easy truss flick coming up, and you know what that means. I really gotta stop failing these medium difficulty jumps, but that fail actually wasn't too bad because I got back up very fast. The end of 10 was still going to be a struggle though, but I've made my way to basically the last hard jump of the tower, which of course, I just had to fail. Well, that's gonna take a while to recover from, so I guess we should speed through the rest of the 10 fails. This jump is just really hard. I waited too long on this truss, and it looks like we're gonna fail this again. This jump is very filler and I shouldn't be selling on it, but thankfully that was the last 10 fail I had before getting back to my PB jump. This time I had practiced it a lot more, and despite hitting my head, I actually landed it. The rest of the tower from there was pretty easy since the final stretch is literally a joke, and even though I'm the type of person to fail that, I was able to complete it from there.
Last jump, dude. Yes! Dude, let's go. I finally did it. That took way too long, bro. That was bad.
I think that grind took me like 2 days, but it was still very nice to finish off because that's one of the hardest terrifying towers. And now I had zones 1 through 7 fully complete as well. ToUA was the last terrifying tower I was going to complete for a while though, because I had to focus on completing every non-SC, beating another kata, and working on videos. But a few months later, I was back to it, with the Tower of Complexity and Volatility. Seems a bit random for me to do this one next, but I was planning on doing ToEMP as a new hardest, so I figured ToCaV would be a good client object skill booster. Honestly, I don't think it really helped at all, but I still had to get this tower out of the way anyways, so here's my first run to 6.
Oh, that jump's nil jump.
I don't know why I started recording at 6 because the first half is really easy in comparison to the second half, but now I have a ton of footage to go through, so I'll show you guys all of it real quick. I failed the very end of 6 on my next attempt, but thankfully I was able to get to 7 right after. But then I failed this really stupid fling, and I'm just gonna say it here that the flings are probably the worst part of this tower. They seem to be so inconsistent no matter what I did, and I was gonna have a ton of fails due to them later on. This tower also has a lot of these very quick time sections, and I failed this one 3 times in a row before finally passing it. And I guess you guys could never guess what I failed right after. I don't know how I messed that up. I genuinely just couldn't speak properly this far into the recording session, but here's the fail.
Sure.
Now we're back to failing this again. Alright. Now time for one of the worst mechanics in the entire game, double jumps, which this tower spams for some reason.
Oh.
Second to last jump is 7, here we go. Oh, last jump is 7, now we should make it. Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate how this jump is significantly harder in-game than in the practice place, and I didn't have VM at the time, so I literally had no way of practicing it. I'm almost 100% sure it was bugged too, because I failed it over 15 times due to the double jump not working. This jump alone was one of the main reasons I didn't like this tower. I know everyone glazes it, but I just can't stand when literally every single jump in the tower is a client object. Anyways, enough of that rant. I did get to 8 eventually, but just like ToUA, I failed trying to do a lodge on high FPS. The next 8 attempt ended to this timed truss flick, which is a huge difficulty spike, and I followed that up by failing yet another fling. Genuinely, what type of gameplay is this? I wouldn't be completing it anytime soon because this happened right after. Why? Back to my favorite mechanic ever, double jumps. They're very consistent and always work, as we all know. The last 2 floors of this tower are over nothing, so if you fail them, you're probably just dead. That's why I was extremely nervous when I got to 9 for the first time, causing this to happen.
No!
And you know what would be a really good idea? If we took the awful fling mechanic and combined it with a beat block and put it over the void at the very end of the tower. Would you all be surprised if I told you my third 9 fail was because of a double jump? No? Okay. During my first run to 10, something was going on outside because you can hear this the entire time.
Come on. First time at 10.
So I'm gonna have to commentate over most of this as well. 10 has some pretty difficult parts, but I practiced it a lot. So I was able to first try everything and make it to the final section of the tower. The only thing that stood between me and the wind pad were these medium difficulty jumps that are basically unfailable. Or at least that was what I thought.
No way. I am in disbelief right now.
That might be the dumbest fail of all time. I completely ignored it and just acted like it was still my first time on 10. And surprisingly enough, that strategy actually worked. We're back at the rocks, and I was not about to do that again.
Jump here, jump here, jump here, jump here. Come on, remember to jump, remember to jump. Oh my, yeah. What was I doing? GG though. That was quite painful, I'm not gonna lie. But everything's okay, because we did it. GG, there we go, and it doesn't even have a wind room, unfortunately.
Hope you guys enjoy those lawnmower sounds. On a more serious note though, I really didn't enjoy this tower even though it only took me like 2 days. I'll tell you guys which towers I liked and didn't like at the end, but this was definitely not a fun one for me. And based on this tower and area, I think the game is going in the wrong direction. Sure, complex mechanics and flashy design can be cool, but sometimes if you want to make a fun tower, it's better to stick to the basics. The best towers for me have a balance between complex client objects and simple purism, as well as everything in between, not just one or the other. That might just be me though, since a lot of people happen to like this tower. But the next one I actually do think is a very good example of how modern towers should be made, and it's the Tower of Wildly Wacky Wonders. I'm normally not a huge fan of punishing towers with complex gameplay, but this one was just different to me. The length was perfect, it felt mostly fair throughout aside from a few bugs, and the design didn't interfere with the gameplay. I started recording when I got to 7 for the first time, and I actually almost looped the floor, but I got caught under this platform on one of the very last jumps before 8. That was one of the most unfair fails I had, but I didn't mind it too much, and so I was actually really enjoying the tower. So I made my way back up, and this time all the way to the end of 8. I did not realize I was going to hit my head from that position, but I think that's decent progress. Next time after that jump, I made sure not to make the same mistake again, so I was able to get my first 9 run. I completely forgot where to go here though, so I turned in way too early and hit the wall, sending me right into the insta-kill. I didn't record every single fail I had falling into this tower, but there were a lot on floor 7 through 9. I remember especially struggling with 8. Despite that, I was able to get back to 9, even under the most pressure out of any of these towers so far, and my second 9 run went a lot better than my first. It was really late at night and I was already falling asleep, so I didn't know how far I would make it, but I passed that button section and made my way through some of the harder parts of 9 without too much trouble. I even passed the cube, which I honestly expected to fail. Then I made my way through these wraparounds onto floor 10, the last but also probably the hardest floor of the tower. It starts off with a lot of these red, green, and blue blocks that are extremely scary on a real run, and then leans towards some more simple purism before throwing you right back into it with these jumps. I mean, I expected to fail 10, but not like that. That jump really isn't that hard. That was the last one I could get on that night though, so I tried again the next day, and this happened.
Alright, this part is really hard.
I was so close to the button plateau, but I guess I'll have to make my way back up to 10 for a 3rd time.
Here we are yet again. Here it is. Oh, that was so close. I did it though. Okay, this jump is big. Yes, okay. This is the finale. Jump late, wall hop up, and now the final jumps. Oh my gosh, that is gotta be one of the towers of all time. Insane, dude. Well, it really is just 2 more terrifyings now.
I was way more excited than I should have been to get that one done since I had been in much harder towers at that point, but this is just the type of tower that feels very good to complete. I did really like it, but also think it's way harder than it's currently placed on the difficulty chart. To me, it was very close to catastrophic. I struggled a lot with that one during the few days I grinded it, but the next tower took me the shortest amount of time of any of these, and that's the Tower of Journey's End. ToJE is one of the more recent additions to the terrifying difficulty, and it was basically only added so one of the new owners could throw his tower in game. But I honestly have no idea what to think about it. I have an entire 1 clip of this tower because I beat it in only 2 hours of playtime, which has got to be one of my luckiest experiences ever in this game. The footage starts from 8 because that floor has a very scary outside, which is the most punishing part of the tower. But it was actually significantly easier in game than in the practice place for some reason, which really threw me off. I wouldn't say I practiced a ton, but I definitely practiced enough, and that's needed for this tower because it actually has some really hard jumps, some of them being similar to ToCR. Anyways, I'll walk you guys through the outside I was talking about, since like I said, it's the most punishing part. It starts by making you flick down the slanted truss, which is very awkward to do, and I actually almost failed it. After a few easier jumps, there's a really hard truss bounce, which I used upwards ToIM for, and then this jump got nerfed a lot compared to how it is in the practice place. There's another nerf part right after, as you can see from the side-by-side. Now it's time for what is in my opinion the hardest part of the outside, this morphers. I practiced them a ton so I had the timing down, which allowed me to pass it first try.
Okay.
From there, it was just a simple wrap and a long jump, and I was now back inside. After struggling a little too much with this exposure, I hit my signature alignment key strap for the last jump of 8 that I don't even know how I discovered, and I was now on floor 9.
Alright, floor 9.
I wasn't that lucky though, because I did fail this back and forth part, which meant I had to redo 8. My main concern besides 8 outside was a spinner that I couldn't practice because it was broken in the practice place, but thankfully I got past that again. That stuff wasn't too bad anymore due to the nerf, so before I knew it, I was back to where I had fallen, and I was now on a new PB. The part after is like horrific for some reason, but I found really good strats and I was able to do these jumps without too much trouble. The rest of 9 wasn't too bad, and I was now on the final floor of the tower.
Yo, floor 10, floor 10.
I was definitely rushing a little on 10, which I'll occasionally do under pressure, but it actually happened to work out here and everything was going well. I was doing all the strategies I'd practiced, including this absurd one here that I think is supposed to just be a bottom flick, but honestly I can't really tell. This one also might be a bottom flick, but you guys already know we don't do bottom flicks around here. I felt like I should not have made some of these jumps, but I will gladly take it. And now we are on to the final jump of the tower.
Last jump, last jump. Is that it? Is that it? Wow, that was really easy. There's no way. Well, GG, that was by far my shortest grind ever.
Only 2 hours for that tower. I was genuinely shocked by that, and I still am. It is so rare that I fluke a tower in this game. This has only happened like 2 other times, and those were both insanes. In fact, this is the only tower in this whole video where I didn't fail 10 besides ToI, where 10 is literally netted. That right there is why I said I had no idea what to think about this tower. To me, it was good, but obviously that's very biased because this was the experience I had with it. If I had a more normal time with the tower with more fails, I could really see it going either way. Maybe I would have still liked it, maybe I wouldn't have. But that marks my 10th terrifying tower, and now it's time for the final one. Tower of nervous sweating. I was genuinely extremely scared of this tower and have been for the longest time because it is very intimidating. The last floor is extremely long and difficult, and the tower is filled with punishing outsides and crazy climbed objects, which is the type of gameplay I'm worst at. But even with that, this ended up being my favorite terrifying tower out of them all. I don't know what it was, but I just had so much fun on tons for no reason at all. And even though I don't think the gameplay itself is amazing or anything, it just happened to be very enjoyable for me, which is why it's my personal favorite terrifying. Before we get into the gameplay though, I want to show a skip really quick because it's one of the funniest ones I found. I have no idea whether or not it kicks, so I only use it as recovery, and I suggest the same for you guys. But basically all you have to do is turn your sound on and walk around the kill bricks on 1 until you hear a button sound. Once you hear that, it means you got the secret floor 1 button progress. And that's it. That's the skip. And it skips like half of 1. I'm pretty sure the reason for this being here is that this button progress was meant to be on a later floor, but they forgot to anchor it, so it just falls to the bottom when you start the tower. And this red platform kind of adds to that theory. I could be right or wrong. If you guys know, make sure to tell me, but I just wanted to show this off real quick. That aside, I started recording on my first 8 attempt, and it went surprisingly well. 8 has a pretty hard outside section with some strange client objects, but I practiced a lot, so I got past it first try. I then skipped the rest of the floor by just simply jumping up here. I don't know what they were doing when building this, but this might just be the second most obvious skip of all time besides this one on floor 2 of ToGF. Some more skips in this tower include forcing your arm to touch this teleporter on 4, which skips most of the floor including the outside and doesn't kick. And you can skip this entire button puzzle as well. The start of 9 isn't too hard, so I easily got through it, but 9 outside is a whole different story. Even though I passed these spinners here, I failed them at least 5 times later on, which I didn't record, but you guys are just gonna have to take my word for it. These things are hard. 9 outside in general is just extremely difficult. I had to practice it a ton to be comfortable going into real runs. This time section is the final part of the outside, and even after skipping some of it, I still let this happen.
I'll make sure you actually know what you're doing here. No!
Not the worst fail ever. It just sent me back to that puzzle section, which I easily skipped. From there, I was able to get back to 9 outside, and this time I actually passed the time section and made it all the way to 10. I'm sure you guys could never in a million years have seen this coming, but 10 is the hardest floor of the tower. What a surprise. Who could have thought? It's not like half these towers follow that pattern or anything. I was just about to fluke 10, so I failed this spinner, but I'm actually really dumb because I didn't realize I could have just skipped that entire part. Here's my next attempt at 10, and you can see me going back there and doing this invisible wall hop to completely skip all that. No idea how this was discovered, but I'm glad it exists. From this point on, floor 10 is divided into 8 sections before the final stretch, and they all have transitions in between them as well. The sections themselves usually aren't too hard, but in my opinion at least, the transitions are actually the hardest part. The first challenge consists of mainly wraps. It's not too hard, but the nerves here get pretty crazy and you you have to be careful. I got past it though, and the transition to the second challenge was an easy one. So I was able to do that as well as Trial 2, which is just easy gameplay and a lot of kill breaks. The next transition was also an easy one, but the ice challenge was next, and almost completely threw away the run by pulling out the wrong item. A few sketchy jumps later, we were onto one of the hardest transition parts, which is basically just one really hard conveyor jump. The fourth challenge was netted and was followed by an easy transition into the fifth challenge, consisting of mainly these spring blocks. And now it's time for another very hard transition.
2, 3, 4, wrap. Down, no! Oh, come on, I was so close.
Tragic fail. I basically had it too. I just failed last second under pressure. That only sent me to 9 though, so I got back up fast, just for this to happen.
Alright, sketchy what?
Really? Yeah, I don't know about that one. That just might be a scam. I was trying to jump onto the conveyor, but somehow I got the momentum from it really early, and the next attempt I had at that transition didn't go any better.
Jump. Dude!
I've actually had enough of whatever this conveyor jump is. Please delete this. Okay, enough failing that. We're back to our PB jump, and we actually landed it this time. Very nice. The sixth section was also netted and had a free transition, so just 2 more challenges. I was kind of just watching a guide the entire time for the 7th challenge since it required you to use the magnifying glass to see fake platforms, but I tried doing a little skip and failed. Good save though, and here we have yet another hard transition. I got past it though, bringing me to the final challenge, which was also one of the hardest ones for me. You can see me shaking on this jump because I especially struggled with it in practice, and I almost shook later in this section too. Now it's just one more transition, this time taking us to the top of the tower and the final stretch. If I complete this, I will have completed every single terrifying tower in EToH. 247 minutes of progress on the line. Here it goes.
This is so scary. Alright, take your time on this tightrope. Still a long ways up. Onto here. Wrap. Okay. Big jumps down. Jump. Jump. You gotta be fast there. You really gotta be fast. They're all so sketchy. Alright, another big jump down. There we go. Just a couple more long jumps. Come on. Is that it? Is that it? Yes! Every single terrifying complete. There's no way. Every single terrifying complete. Let's go. In under a year, just barely. I'm so happy about that.
And there it is. All 11 terrifying towers in EToH complete. I beat my first terrifying tower on this very unfortunate day in September of 2024 and completed my last one on September 9th, 2025, meaning this grind took just under a year. That was actually my goal as I was finishing up the last couple towers, so I'm really glad I did it just in time. But there is still one thing left to do.
The rest of them I completed legit the first time, and also I was going to do a segment at the end where I reviewed every tower, but this video is already way too long, so I'll just put that in the description instead.
Well, that's it for this video. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the new longest video on my channel, so that's cool, I guess. I am very scared to edit this, but I'll put some text on screen letting you guys know how it went when I'm done. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one though, because I've been planning it for so long, and it's been a huge project in the works for forever now. So it feels kind of crazy to finally be at this point. The only thing left now is the catastrophics, so I'll be back soon with another one of those. But for now, thank you guys for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.